We're here for Pivoting in Real Time. This is the 8th event in our Leadership Summit series, Women Leading in a Time of COVID. My name is Demetra Paggio, and I'm in the class of 2002, and it's my pleasure to be your host. As many of you know, the Chicago Booth Women's Network hosts events around the world with the vision of women empowering women for professional success. And today we are here for what is truly going to be a lively and engaging panel discussion around career change when life intervenes. Before we get started, I want you all to know that we're here, as with all CBWN events, that you are here to be valued, respected, and to share your perspectives. We need you to have trust and confidence in the exchange of ideas, thoughts, feelings, and embracing perspectives of women, different views and experiences, and you will definitely see that here today. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Anita Brick, Director of Career Advancement Programs of Chicago Booth Career Services. And she will be leading our panel discussion and introducing our fine panelists. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. This is really exciting to me, and it's really exciting to have the 5 panelists that we have today. And I'm actually going to let them introduce themselves as we ask the first question. But just so that you know, we have Shaylin and Sharon and Annie and Cheryl and my colleague Meenakshi, who has her own pivot story, which is why we have 5 panelists today, and think of it more of a roundtable. Please feel free to chat anything in, any questions at any time. This is not going to be, we're going to talk for a while, and then at the end, if there's time, you can ask questions. You can ask questions at any time. And then we will, Demetra will share this with us and we'll have a conversation. So I'd like to start with a question. And the question is, what were you planning to do when you got your MBA? And it could be just a few words, and we're going to get into your story as we come out. So state your name and maybe share which program you were in, and tell us, why did you get your MBA and what were you hoping to do post MBA? And Sharon, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Anita. I'm Sharon Van Zwieten. I finished Booth in 2010. I did the executive MBA program, primarily from Singapore, but also in Chicago and London. And I'm originally from Chicago. And what I hoped to get out of my MBA was or what I wanted to do right afterwards. I'm a journalist in TV news, and I observed over my career that there were 2 kinds of bosses. There was a boss who had risen through the journalism ranks and had great editorial skills and no business acumen, or there were the people who rose through the sales ranks and knew all the numbers and had no sense of the editorial. And I was tired of working for bad bosses, and I wanted to be the boss that I wanted. That was my goal.
How did that play out initially?
It has not played out very well. I mean, I'm still gainfully employed, and I'm very, very happy in the job that I'm in. But it does seem that the legacy numbers people and money people are the ones who rise, and the editorial journalism types, unless they have enough money to actually buy their company, tend to stay in a fairly siloed universe. However, where it has come in really handy and where I never would have anticipated the connection is that so much of journalism today is data driven. And so understanding how to gather data, analyze data, interpret data, those lenses have been invaluable.
Wonderful. Okay. And we're gonna delve into all this, but just to give everyone just a little bit of a sense of who we are. Shaylin, I know you're in the midst of moving 2,500 people to a new space and to return to the office. So I know you've got a lot, so thank you so much for making the time. When you were graduating from Booth, what did you hope to do, and how has that played out for you?
Yeah, well, thanks, Anita. And, always for you. I always show up for you no matter what's going on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
As Anita said, I'm Shaylin OT-Core, now OT-Core Miller, work-life integration there, right? I am the head of global workforce at Northern Trust. And when I started at Booth, I've been at Northern Trust 25 years. So I'm on my 25th year anniversary this year. And when I started at Booth and back in 2000, I think it was 8, I was at that crossroads. Do I stay with the company and look to move up? Do I leave the company and look to go elsewhere? Obviously, student loans are not cheap, so you're looking to get the best return on your investment when you graduate, right? But at the same time, I had invested so much time at Northern Trust, I didn't want to lose my political capital that I had built as well. That is, it's priceless. It's hard to rebuild that from a new company and get another 10, 13 years under your belt. So when I started this, I thought two things. One, I want to move up. I wanted to move up quicker. I wanted to get paid more, quite frankly. And I wanted to show the company that I was qualified enough to do that. When I started Booth, it was also 2008, economic crisis. The market was flooded with financial professionals from Lehman Brothers, Countrywide, all these too big to fail that failed. All those professionals then became my competition on the competitive landscape of going for new roles and promotions. So I didn't feel comfortable in competing against some of these what I thought were more qualified individuals now flooding the market. So I went to Booth because I wanted to hone my qualifications, my skill set, and I wanted to prove to my company that I was ready to move up the ladder. So years later, it has worked out pretty well. I'm still with Northern Trust, so there you go. I have had some conversations. I won't say it was linear in that, I got a Chicago Booth MBA, here's a promotion, here's a raise. Of course not. But I was able to take the tools that I learned at Booth, the thinking, the frameworks, the negotiation skills, those are key, and sit down and have some real confident, candid conversations with my management team about what I wanted in my career and where I wanted to go. They responded luckily in kind, and over the last couple of years, I've received a couple of promotions, and now I oversee our largest business unit, which is about 60% of the company. Everything related, I report to the head of strategy, who reports to the president, and look over everything related to the employee experience.
That's terrific. And I know that we're going to talk a little bit about choices that you made, because you had options. Some you said yes to, some you said no to. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Let's go to Cheryl. And then we're not going to go around each time to every person. So I want you to all jump in if you feel that you really want to answer the question. But to get us started, to give everybody a little bit of context about us. So Cheryl made choices that were different along the way, but tell us, when you were graduating from Booth, what was the plan? And then how has that played out?
When I graduated from Booth in 2003, I was coming off of 5 years as a sell-side equity research analyst out of New York. I thought I would just get the stamp in my book and go back to investment analysis. So before I graduated, I already had a full-time job at William Blair as a research associate. The guy knew me. I was his competition, or I supported his competition prior to going to Booth. And my boss at the time was also a Booth alum. So yeah, it was insane. Things are very different. I moved on, became a senior analyst for myself, which was great. And I got married to a Booth alum, but we really struggled to be parents. I had multiple miscarriages. And by the time I was carrying my 5th pregnancy, we figured out it was viable. But my husband was given a job offer he couldn't refuse, and we moved to Minneapolis in 2008. Our daughter was born in September. The market crashed in November, and I was a stay-at-home mom. It turned out I stayed home for 7 years, and in a market where there's only one shop in town that was going to even look at me, and there were other people that were willing to work harder than me. So I spun my wheels a really long time, got a part-time job in financial modeling for a marketing company, which I knew nothing about. And Then my husband got another job offer he couldn't refuse, and we went to middle of nowhere in New Hampshire, and I had to start all over again, no job, getting the family all situated. 10 months later, my husband said, I have to find a new job again. And I said, look, this time I got to be able to help. I have a brain, I've got stuff in there. I have potential. Like, we need to move to a market where I actually can work. Our kids going to school, and we moved to Glenview, Illinois. And when your house doesn't sell and you're renting something in the North Shore, you have to find a job really quick. And I did. So I work in private equity now. I am a partner following small and mid-sized community banking. I work from home. My kid is 12 now. She's kicking ass at school, even through COVID. When I compare what I wanted to do versus what I'm doing, this is better, because back then it was very siloed, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to work 100 hours a week, but I never put in the factor of having a spouse who also has career ambitions, or having a child and parenting her instead of hiring a nanny. So it's been a long journey, but I really like it a lot.
Excellent. Excellent. So Annie graduated in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. So Annie, why don't you tell us what you were planning to do a year ago and how that played out?
Yeah, so I'll start a year and a half ago during campus recruiting. I was deeply, deeply dedicated to consulting. I had prepped so hard, was a co-chair of the consulting club, had done so many lab classes. Consulting was 100% where I wanted to go. And I had 3 offers, and it was amazing. And I chose the one that I most wanted. And along about a year ago, exactly, maybe late April, early May, I got a call from that consulting firm, and they rescinded all their offers for everyone that they had hired that year. And so, I was thinking about this call specifically yesterday, just thinking about this panel, and it occurred to me that I didn't even push back. It didn't occur to me to ask, like, hey, could we do something different? Could I start later? I just heard it, and it was in the middle of COVID, and I accepted it. And so, in that moment, I don't think I knew what to do. I saw that consulting was crashing. All of my peers were getting deferred offers instead of being able to start when they expected. And I was frankly a little jealous of that. I'm like, oh, if only I could just start in a year instead of going through this whole process again. And so it felt really daunting. And I took a moment to step back and really think about what I wanted, how I was feeling, what I needed to do to get through that. And I'll say I'm still a work in progress, because we all are always, right? But, over that summer, I interviewed at a lot of different places, launched a beverage company. So, I've been in the startup space. I'm leading a pro bono consulting firm that connects small businesses and MBA students on pro bono projects. And so there's a lot that's going really, really well. But if you had asked me a year ago if I would be okay, I don't think I would have said yes.
Yeah. Thank you for being so honest and vulnerable, because everybody really, and last but certainly not least, my colleague Meenakshi, if you can share a little bit about your career in an MBA, as an MBA, and then what you plan to do post MBA.
Yeah, so I'm so inspired by Sharon, Shaylin, Cheryl, Annie, and yourself, Anita. So thank you for having me here. Pre-Booth, pre-MBA, I had a degree in painting and performance. I was an international with an F1 and then finally an H1B visa. I had visions of being an artist, which of course was very naive, given that I was on an H1B visa and I needed to have a job. I worked as a design consultant, which I loved, and some of my accounts were Hyatt and Virgin, which really opened my eyes to the fact that
I could straddle both worlds, the creative and the analytical. And a day came when my manager said, there's only so far that you can go as a designer, and I think you should go do your MBA. I was very poor. So Shaylin, like you, I figured the MBA would be my ticket to riches and infamy or fandom. But of course, you know, the path changes, and I'm very happy where I am right now. So I did my MBA with the goal of really being that translator, you know, between the creative and the analytical. However, the week that I started my MBA at Booth, which was in '06, I was an evening MBA student because I couldn't afford to go full time. I was on an H-1B. I didn't want to go risk in, you know, my visa. But the week I started my MBA, my right kidney started failing, and I had to go in for surgery to put a stent in it. So the entire time that I did my MBA, which was 2 years, I accelerated it. I had a stent in my kidney, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to be fooling people as I recruit. I can't recruit because I have to figure out a way to solve this issue. And so immediately post MBA, there was no Obamacare at the time. I had to leave the US to seek medical care outside of the US. My family was in Hong Kong at the time. We all moved back to India so that I could basically get my kidney removed. I did have visions, Anita, coming back to what you said, of being a marketing and brand manager. That was my goal. And then eventually create a platform for artists. But that was my path during my MBA.
Okay. Wow. Those are all amazing stories. Like, you know, this says so much about our community. There's so many different things that each of us has done and all of that. Before I ask another question, and you know, I've got a bunch of them, I wanted to ask Demetra if there were any questions that came through the chat that would be appropriate to ask now.
We haven't had any questions yet, but we have had several comments about the authenticity and how candid everyone's being. And I think, and I speak for myself as well, that we have related to part or all of your stories. I'm really enjoying this discussion so far. So I'll definitely let you know if we get a specific question. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Well, each of you talked about choices that you had to make. And I'm curious, when you think about it, there are lots of different reasons to change. Some of you already talked about that. And Annie, I want to start with you because this is very recent. And then please, everybody, feel free to jump in. What were some 2 or 3 key choices that were really up for you last year, a year ago, when that dream consulting job went away? What were a couple of things that you kind of wrestled with in terms of, well, because you started in nonprofit. Was there a thought about returning there, or what were a couple of things that you needed to make decisions on during that really pivotal time?
Yeah, what didn't I need to make decisions on? So I live in Boston with my husband and was actually stuck in Chicago during the first part of the pandemic. I know I could have driven home, but I had a place here for recruiting, et cetera. So I had to make a decision. Was I going to stay in Chicago and try to, you know, continue to connect with my network here in Chicago where I'm sitting right now? Or was I going to go home and be with my husband in a, you know, safer space? And I decided to stay in Chicago. I was still finishing classes. So during the pandemic, in the spring quarter, I had been supposed to study abroad in Hong Kong, but that didn't quite happen. So I also had to make a decision about, you know, whether I was going to take classes in the summer or not. So I did end up taking classes in the summertime, just to keep myself, give myself a rhythm, to be honest. I really just needed something. And then I had to decide whether I was going to sit and wait for something to come to me or whether I was going to do something about it. And I'm not somebody who has a very strong internal locus of control. I always want to, but you know, I feel sometimes like, you know, if only I didn't have to be as resilient as I am, if only life would stop happening this way. But that's not really how it works. Like I'm the one who has to make it happen.
Right,
So I think
right.
a decision point that I made was that I was going to explore some other options while consulting wasn't really an option for anyone. I interviewed with Facebook, IBM, looked at tech companies. And I don't think I did really want to go back to the nonprofit space. Honestly, I came to Booth because I wanted to prioritize my wealth and, get into a space where I felt like I could really solve problems that were bigger than the nonprofit sector is solving, which they're solving huge problems, but I wanted to solve even bigger problems. So I all of that. And then of course, I, maybe had a little too much to drink over the summer and started started thinking about this beverage company and realized that there is a gap in the hard seltzer market, which is growing at a double or triple digit rate in delicious alcohol being part of the seltzer. So I'm launching a sake-based hard seltzer. Recently became a certified sake professional and am in an accelerator for that as well. So I had to make a lot of decisions about moving myself forward, but I think that helped me not just in the short term, but probably for the rest of my life.
Wow, that is that's amazing. It is amazing. Well, we knew this. We knew that the alumni on this panel are all amazing. So let's move from kind of that startup world, which you've got to let us all know when you launch and when we can. I don't drink a lot of alcohol, but I want to taste it.
It won't be high ABV.
Okay, all right.
Have a little.
Okay, there you go. But Shaylin, you stayed in the same company. Now I know that you had options because, and this is not hyperbole, but you are a rock star. We know that.
And
so I know
this office all the time.
Right. Well, see, there you go. I mean, so how did you make choices within Northern Trust or external? What kind of choices did you need to make to drive to where you are today? Because we know that it's just there for you.
Thank you, Anita. It's funny listening to Annie and talking about the nonprofit sector. When I was at Booth, I was helping to launch our corporate social responsibility segment at Northern Trust because I always felt I had a social service heart and a business mind. And I always had this part of me that wanted to go into nonprofit, and someone told me, you're too corporate, you'll kill them. Stay in the corporate segment. But then someone else helped me understand. They said, stop limiting yourself by these perceptions and stereotypes and boxes, right? So, for example, they said, well, you want to go into nonprofit to do good in the world, but you could stay in corporate, have a position where you get to direct corporate dollars into communities and the nonprofits you're looking to serve, which could have as big of an impact, or if not bigger. So right now, for example, I get to help make decisions on where we route our charitable dollars within my business unit, Northern Trust. For me, I think the same thing. There were a lot of different options, a lot of different guidance and mentorship and different routes and journeys that you could pursue. For me, I guess I had to really ask myself, what are my motivating factors? What do I kind of see the big picture for my life? How do I reconcile my authentic self with the corporate life, my passions with my desire to have a big income? Because you can't have a large salary and think you're only going to work 20 hours a week. It doesn't work like that. I will tell you guys though, after a few promotions, it's kind of like growing up where you can't wait to grow up and be an adult. And then once you're an adult, you realize, I really wish I would have waited and took my time growing up, right? So I'm senior vice president now, and I can say my responsibilities have exploded, and so there are things that are a bit more challenging at this level than I had anticipated. And I think sometimes we take for granted some of the softer skills, the emotional development, the political skills that we need to succeed. So I think for me, as I was going along the way, I was always kind of wondering what to do. And I had an executive coach one time, and we were sitting down talking, and she just kept asking me, she said, what do you want to do? What is your plan? And finally, I realized, like, I just want peace. I just want a little peace and calm. I want a little freedom and flexibility with my life. That's where I'm at now. You know, I've had the roles where I've worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week. You know, I've had the roles where I had worked weekends and nights and different time zones, and I still do some of that now. I said, but more than anything, I kind of want to enjoy life a little bit more, you know, and that's okay. I think sometimes we think that that's not okay, that it's not okay, especially as a woman, when you're in the business and you think, you know, I have to go as hard as the guys, you know, but it's okay to say, no, I'm leaving at 5 because I want to take my child to the park. You know, no, I can't work this weekend because I want to do this. And then I realized for me, as I developed in my career these past couple of years, is that I want a manager who understands my work-life integration, who respects it. If they have their own, that helps. Then be a bit more empathetic to yours. I want a manager who allows me to perform based on outcomes and not time zones or time in the office or punching a clock. I want freedom and flexibility more than anything. And I will sacrifice opportunities. I will even sacrifice additional income if I know it will have an adverse effect on my peace, my mental health, you know, and my family life. And that's where I am right now.
Well, I think it takes a lot of courage to know that.
Yeah.
It's easy, it's much easier to either follow the path. I mean, you see people do this and then 20 years into their career, maybe sooner, maybe later, they're like, oh my gosh, I wasted all this time.
Yeah.
So being able to stand up, I think it's a few things. Like, it's knowing what you want, it's knowing your values, and knowing where the guardrails are and what's most important to you, but having the wherewithal to honor that day in and day out takes a lot of courage, in my opinion. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. So I said I wasn't going to go around the room, but I want to take a pause for a second and see if before we move on, if there are, I see things pop up in the chat. Demetra, anything in the chat that you want to share with us?
Yeah, we just had a question for, I think Shaylin, but all of the panelists as well. What were the specific steps that you used to figure out, you know, what was important to you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, isn't that the $1 billion question? Yeah, please. Jump in, anybody who wants to, please.
Well, a lot of trial and error and failure, you know, start there, risk taking and being comfortable with taking risk and failing. For me, I think it took some coaching and mentoring from a variety of people who were a bit further along to really help me realize I kind of knew what I wanted and didn't want. Like Anita said, I just was scared to admit it. I was scared to admit that, guess what? I don't want that corner office. I actually want to be in the office less, you know, and I'm okay if I take a side office you know. So I think for me, it was more self-realization and awareness and just getting comfortable with being honest with myself and admitting it to others.
That's good. Thank you.
I'm sorry, were you done? I don't want to interrupt. I think the notion that we can take steps to get somewhere is a little bit of a false image. I find myself going where I have opportunities and then either rationalizing or making the best out of that opportunity. Only once in my life have I had 2 job offers at the exact same time where I could choose A or B. And it was a terrible choice that I had to make. Most of the time, I don't have a choice of an option and so I just, you know, negotiate with myself. And when I was married, I was with my partner. And when I was just with my kids, it was with my kids. You know, I think it's a constant negotiation. I look at my dictionary, there's no word balance. Like, it's just not there. There's no such thing. It's just constant, like life on one of those, you know, boogie boards or Bosu balls, whatever you call it, like they have in the gym. It's just constant balancing. It's not a step. It's, you know, steps feels finite. It's a constant process.
It's a very good point. I have a friend whose name is Kelly Yost, and she talks a lot about, she actually does not like the word balance at all. She's an MBA from Columbia. She likes fit. And fit will get modified and change over time depending on our circumstances. Cheryl, I know you unmuted yourself. Was it just like an accident, or did you have something you wanted to share?
I wanted to share that sometimes the setback or the disappointment actually forces you to really figure out how important something is to you. If you're really bummed that X did not happen, then you would maybe want to work harder on that. And sometimes I found that I didn't care. Like, not so sad. Maybe this isn't a direction that I wanted to go in. And then the other thing I thought was, like, when you realize how many resources and opportunities you have in your arsenal, like, that at least motivates me to, like, take those tools and do something with it instead of just sitting and waiting. Because I did a lot of sitting and waiting as a stay-at-home mom. And after a while, like, it parlayed into, well, I need to network. What networks can I rely on besides Booth to further my career? Well, it turned out my high school has this sort of untapped network, and it morphed into being the head of their alumni board and representing them at, like, a Penn University U Chicago board, which now actually ended up for me getting hired by a lab/Booth alum to the job I currently have. So you never know. It's both setbacks and opportunity. So that's all we wanted to share.
And some people would say it just depends which lens you're using, right? So sometimes the setback is like a wah wah, and that's where it ends. And in my opinion, it ends when we create value from it. And sometimes the value, like you said, Cheryl, is to say, well, I don't want this. And other times it's, I'm going to figure out how to use this as leverage. Demetra, I saw that you're unmuted, and I'm wondering, do we have a question, or do you have a question?
We did have another follow-up question directed for Shaylin. Did you find that as you progressed in your career that maybe having more opportunities to go after the trade-offs, the work-life balance, did you find that you were more in a position where you could make those decisions as opposed to, like, earlier in your career?
Yeah, I would say yes or no. And, I asked some of my co-panelists to chime in here too as well. I feel that the more senior I got, the more confident I got to put my foot down, put it like that. And in hindsight, I realized I had those opportunities earlier in my career. I just didn't have the confidence to pursue them. I thought I had to take the role with the nights and the weekends. And it was another senior leader when I told her one time, I just spent, the weekend. And she was just like, oh my God, why would you do that? Don't ever work those hours. Don't ever. I had another manager tell me, like, hey, I see you here at 9, 10 o'clock at night finishing up, this project. You see me leave at 6. Leave with me. If you don't stop working, how will we know we have a resource issue? So there were a lot of times where I thought I had to give those hours when really I could have just worked smarter. I could have done things that had a bigger impact in a smaller window of time. I could have proven myself on different programs. I could have traded off roles that would have gave me more freedom. But I had it in my mind, I wanted to go here quickly. And to do that, I had to give them my life and soul, right arm and left leg, and firstborn child. And now when I look back, I realized that, I should have just been a bit more confident in saying enough. I need to get out of here. I want to leave for the day. And it took a while to get that confidence. Even now, I don't explain myself. I say, I have to take off the rest of the afternoon. I'll catch up tomorrow. I don't tell them I'm going to the park to play with a 4-year-old.
Well, I'm curious because this is a question that comes up. It comes up across the board. I think it comes up more with women than men, but it comes up across the board. Are there things that you did? Are there experiments that you ran that were relatively low risk to increase confidence? Confidence seems to be a big issue. And I think sometimes the person who is working to build the confidence often doesn't see the value other people see. So are there anybody really can jump in? There are a couple of tips that you would have to create a foundation, a laboratory to experiment and test those waters?
I can jump in. Anita,
you.
I've known you for decades now. And one thing that we were talking about when we first met in 2004 was my lack of confidence. And one thing you suggested that I do was success filing, which I still do almost every day. I have a University of Chicago notebook because they gave it to me. And I write down everything that I consider a success throughout the day, something I start, something I complete, or something I delete. When you feel like you're literally not adding value and you look at the little things that you did every day, that it adds up. And like if you aim for 20 things, even if it's empty the dishwasher and fill out the kids' health digital form so she doesn't have COVID, like they add up to look at all the stuff I did. And some of them are, I completed this massive project that was, 4 days long. It makes you feel good to just write it down. After a while, you realize how valuable you are to your organization, to your family, to yourself. And so I do it all the time. Just thought I'd say it. It's been working for decades now.
That's great. Meenakshi.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl, for sharing that, because I think we all take a confidence beating, and I think men and women equally so. I think women, we tend to internalize it a lot more perhaps, and maybe I'm generalizing. But for me, my confidence took a beating because I saw all my peers who had graduated with me getting high-flying MBA jobs, and I was basically bedridden, for 6 months. And it took me a long time to get over that. And I realized that I needed to stop comparing myself to others, So what I started doing, Cheryl, much like you, I started challenging myself to do things that were out of my comfort zone. So I wasn't comparing myself or competing with anyone else other than myself and my own boundaries and limitations. And so, for example, I'm a terrible athlete. I'm just awful. I will stumble and fall, but I started setting up goals for myself, so I still do that. Like you, Cheryl, last year it was kayaking. This year I have ice climbing on my calendar. And I might go 10 feet above the ground, or I might go 10 meters down in a kayak. But for me, that's more than I did. And that helps me build my own confidence. It's more of an internal journey as opposed to an external validation.
I totally agree. And I would add one other dimension to all of that. It should be things under your control, and the things that Cheryl mentioned and that Meenakshi mentioned. And I guess that everybody has mentioned in one way or another, start with the things you can control, because the things you can't control will frustrate you. It will demonstrate if you can't force anyone to help you. You can't force anyone to say yes or to do something. So focusing on things you have control over actually help you build positive momentum. Sounds like we have another question, Demetra.
I just wanted to add a little bit more onto that last point.
Great, thank you.
I think that kind of marathon training approach is super interesting. I specifically took that approach as well, but for job searching. So when my offer was rescinded, and when I finally gained enough confidence to be able to do something about it, I just made, obviously a giant spreadsheet and tracked every single one of the over 100 applications that I sent in over the summer and fall of 2020. And when I would see any kind of positive response, I would take that as a confidence boost. Whether it was just a generic thank you email that wasn't a negative sounding one, or whether it was an invitation to interview, or, made a connection with somebody at a company, something like that. And I had, I think, Harry Davis and Linda Ginzel both in my mind, because I took classes with both of them, and just like really thinking about how to track your own leadership progress and success progress, and then reflect on it as well. So I just wanted to add that little context in too.
Excellent. Very good point. Demetra.
So building on all of these experiences, the question has come up is how do you force yourself, maybe that might be an interesting word, but force yourself to enjoy the journey instead of worrying about the end goal? Because as you started, I mean, that's a perfect question to how you started this. Like when we graduated, where did we see ourselves going? We all had a goal, and through all these stories, we know that the journey doesn't necessarily go right there. So, and I know we've touched upon some of these, but I'd love to hear some answers from the panelists.
I can
That'd be
be
great.
really quick about this. So I gave myself a side quest, if you will, of starting this beverage company. And I do have another full-time job. You know, I'm the CEO of another startup and running that. But the side quest of enjoying, well, one, I do really appreciate different alcohols, you know, in a true way, not in just a let me play beer pong with you way. But for me, exploring that and doing some research, you know, claiming that tasting something new was research and tracking that, and you know, going through the process of launching a startup and applying to an accelerator and getting into that accelerator and building another network, etc. So for me, that side quest was really, really critical to enjoying the journey, because there were definitely dark times during the journey of finding another full-time job, and without something happening alongside it, I don't think I would have enjoyed that piece of it.
Yeah.
Excellent point. Thank you.
For me, you know, I always tell my mentees and women or men at work, and I don't mean this to be, you know, rude or anything, but get a life, get a nice life, and and make it a better life. And the better your personal life gets, the happier you will be with your career, the more confident you will be with having these conversations, because it will no longer be your number one priority. When work was my end all be all I had, it was, you put your all into it. You come into work, you take things personal, you get emotional, you get angry when things aren't going your way, because it's all you have, right? Once you have outside hobbies, passions, relationships, even children, your priorities shift completely. You no longer take work so seriously. You don't get as emotional. You don't get as upset. I am so much better now at just shutting off. Like, oh, okay, this went bad today. People are yelling and screaming, but I have dinner plans tonight with my girlfriends. I'm going to vent and laugh and joke and come in tomorrow and pick it up. You stop taking things so seriously. So my advice is to get a personal life and build it and focus on it, and stop making it a side job or a side hobby and your real job the main purpose. That's not how it's supposed to work. Our careers are not supposed to be our first priority. They're a secondary priority to your life.
And building on what you just said, you know how when you're on a plane, they say, you know, put on your own air mask first. If we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to be any good to anybody else. It was April Fool's Day 2019, and I went to have my mammogram, and it didn't turn out well. And a couple of weeks later, I had double mastectomy. And all I could think of at the time was, oh my God, thank goodness I have a job. At least I have a job. I have health insurance. I have a job. So about 2 months later, I had my reconstruction surgery. And while I was recovering from that, my company decided to close up shop and gave everybody their 90-day warn notice. And then I thought, well, at least I don't have cancer. And so it's kind of like just flipping the script on yourself, but taking care of yourself. And when you take care of yourself, I don't want to say nothing else matters, but you can take care of whatever else comes your way. So it was just kind of interesting. Like, you know, people think, oh, you know, 2020 was the worst year. And I'm thinking, you know, 2019 wasn't so great either. 2021 is like, you know, it's not going to be on a calendar. It's going to be moments, not anything else like that.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so remarkable. I work with people, and I think that people fall into two camps. One is the person where, and fortunately this doesn't happen very often, where anything you say is, well, I tried that, it doesn't work. You know, I had a networking call, but they didn't give me a job, so what good are they? So there's like the lack of appreciation, both the gratitude and not taking responsibility for our own growth. clearly everyone on the panel today, and I'm sure many people who are here and that will listen in the future, take the other side. They value what they do have. They feel, maybe they even thank the people around them, but they feel they value what they do have, and they look for developmental opportunities. They look for opportunities to grow their own capacity as professionals, but I would say, you know, with a nod to Shaylin, as human beings. Because ultimately, if we are not going to be good human beings where we care about others, we're going to live in a pretty rotten world. And so each of us has the space, and you look at the women on this panel where the influence, the ability to have a strong, solid, diamond-like core and to be able to bring that to their families and to their workplaces makes the world a better place. And even if you're not explicitly in social impact, we're all in social impact. So anyway, off my soapbox here for a moment, and see if there are any other questions that have come in.
Right now, I would just like to, again, reiterate that we're getting a lot of comments about how refreshing and open everybody is. And I just want to, again, thank Anita for putting together this panel. This is truly, you know, woman-focused, women empowering other women, learning from each other, and just such a unique event. And it's been really fantastic to hear from all of you. I'm an 02 grad, so post 9/11. So Annie, you know, really can relate. I remember Cheryl actually from school, and 07 was our horrible year. My husband had a very serious medical issue that came up in 07, and I just feel like I can relate to so many, and I know other people listening just from the comments. So I'll let you continue on, Anita, but thank you so much.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about, I have two questions, and if there are questions, you should just like unmute yourself and I will notice and we'll jump in. First question is just to look a little bit of a forward, future looking. And I'm going to start with Meenakshi this time, since I ended with you and when we talked about past. What is, and we'll keep it here, right? What is a future aspiration? Something that just thinking about makes your heart sing.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. So, you know, to yours and Shaylin's and Sharon's point of, I'm the kind of person who lives in the moment. I don't see, while I have North Stars, those North Stars are more intrinsic, where it's, you know, gratitude, empathy. I want to make an impact. I want to enjoy, and I want to learn. I don't have a job function or a role or a career trajectory in mind. Clearly, you know, if any of you get to know me better, you will see that my career has wound around different places. You know, I've been a street artist. I've been, yeah, that was, you know, so I don't know what that final goal is, Anita, and I forgive me for not answering it. I want to be challenged. I want to learn in my job. I want to continue to create impact. I'm a career coach for anyone who doesn't know this, and I absolutely love my job. I landed on it quite accidentally, really, you know, but with purpose. And I don't know where my road will lead. I just know from having lots of curveballs thrown at me that I cannot predict my end journey, but I can certainly, to the participant who sent us the question, I can enjoy it. And so I sort of throw myself into everything wholeheartedly. I want to excel. I may not be the best, but I want to do the best.
That's wonderful. And I think you made a really good point, and I feel much the same way, is that when we focus on a role, we may miss all these different opportunities that are floating around us that we just don't see. But having those key elements that you mentioned, like empathy and learning and gratitude as a compass, then you can ask the question. If you know something is like zinging by, you can grab it and say, oh, is this something? Oh yeah, actually that fits. Let me think more about that. I think we also live in a world with side gigs, right? And you know, when some people graduated who are on this call, myself included, side gigs had to be sort of like, you know, under the radar and hidden. Today, it's pretty much a norm. So that's another way to experiment. And I guess when I ask the question about future aspiration, it doesn't have to all be work related. It's really, what do you want your life to be? Cheryl, how do you envision the next phase? And I don't think of an endpoint, you know, it's not like the final frontier. It's like, what do you feel as is something you want to move toward?
I think COVID really made my family think about how we want to spend our time. And my daughter's finishing up 6th grade, so we realized we only have 6 years with her before she goes off and does her life. She plays travel sports, so every vacation is lacrosse, except for spring break. So we decided that our spring breaks have to be epic. So basically, I'm working to pay for Hawaii for next spring break. And then I don't know where we're going to go for our other one. So those are the short-term, very short-term ones. I have decided to say no to a lot of things. And I'm stepping down from volunteer work at the University of Chicago, which it's like the mob. I've been there for 8 years. I love it. But I keep telling them, like, I want to work on my abs. Like, I want a 6-pack. I'm sorry, I'm being selfish right now. But more importantly, I think I need to focus on my health. Like the last 24 months, I've seen my parents age, and I see my future if I don't make choices about minding what I eat and making time for exercise and reducing my stress. So I'm learning how to meditate, and meditation sucks for me. I can't do it. I'm learning how to do yoga. I hate it. If yoga was lying on your back, I'd be so good at it. But so these are new sort of challenges and struggles, but I feel like it'll pay off long term. And the job, I love my job, but it's not as important as it was to me at age 26. And I just kind of, you know, it's something I do because my brain juices up and thinks it's awesome, but I feel like the time matters more. Like, how do I spend it? Like, I'm happy to do what I do, but I'm constantly thinking about it. So we'll see.
Good, thank you. Sharon, anything you'd like to add?
I think I'm not a fan of the word holistic, but I do think you kind of have to take a 360-degree view of how you're going to achieve success. And maybe it's not meditation, but it's a good night's sleep. Maybe it's not a good night's sleep, but it's commuting at a time when there's less traffic. It's, you know, saying no and being okay with it. And, you know, I will often very literally say, no man would have any difficulty saying no to this. Why am I like, you know, just so anxious? And, you know, if I just have to put myself in the shoes of a man, you know, and be a woman and do it. You know, the gender divide has really been like, I thought I would be more militant as a younger woman, and it's kind of striking me more now than it did 20 or 30 years ago. And I don't know if it's because I can see the gap more clearly, feel the different ways in which people are treated differently. Interestingly, I don't feel like my MBA was valued in the marketplace in the non-financial world of media until the person who hired me was a woman with an MBA. And, you know, we recognize the value, but I don't know that the marketplace does as much or recognize the different sacrifices that many of us had to make while getting the MBA. I mean, I was a single mom with 2 kids working a full-time job, and I don't know how I did it. I just don't know. Um,
I'm glad you
I
did.
did,
I'm glad
we
you
all
did.
did, you know, and we're still here.
Thank you. Annie, and then Shaylin, if you can like bring us home. Annie, as you think about the future, again, what are a couple of things you aspire to in the next phase?
Yeah, so I think everybody's got such a exciting, passionate next step. I think for me, I am still pretty career driven. I don't want kids ever. And I love my husband and we love each other and it's great. And I love that you all have your own experience as well. So I think when I think about what's next, it's less about the specific job because that's still, if you ask me, is consulting, but it's more about what values I have. And I think all of you have said this without explicitly saying, these are my values. But I think adventure, growth, and change are the three things that probably matter the most to me and did before COVID. And seeing some of those get a little bit of a beating during COVID was all the more inspiration to focus on those as things start to emerge. So my husband and I are planning where we're going to go next, you know, how we're going to explore the world more, and how I'm going to be able to grow and change in my career as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And Shaylin, bring us
Yeah,
home.
well, you know, much like Annie, I never had envisioned myself having children, and then I married a man with children, so I have stepchildren, and the families are fun, especially when they're 5, so you never know where life will take you, right? I will say for me, I don't plan in goals. I don't plan the end game. I don't plan 5 to 10 years out. I plan 12 months out at a time because so much changes in 12 months. Who I am, who I want, my goals, my company, the market, it just changes. You know, I'll swing from one end to the other in 12 months. So for me in 12 months, my plan is to teach my husband how to follow orders at home.
Oh, that's a big one. That's a big
you
one.
know, that's the big priority at the moment, ladies. I'm just going to tell you right now. I'm newly married, so marriage and children are new. So if you're one of those women who are, you know, you're single, you're wondering, let me just tell you, it is a whole nother career, right? So besides that, and family life, and just, you know, I have a garden. I have a nonprofit on the side that I am looking to get off the ground. No deadline because it's mine, which is beautiful. So I can take as much time as I want with this. So I don't see it, you know, getting extraordinarily big in a year, but I want to see it progress. You know, I have objectives that work and strategies and goals. Again, I don't see in 12 months every single one of them will be completed. Some will, some won't, some will blow up, some will taper off and cause other issues and create more programs. So over the next year for me, I'm just, again, focused more on my stress levels, you know, managing. That's top of the house. You know, when I'm talking to my doctor about chest pains and she tells me I'm perfectly healthy and it's work, well, then that was an eye-opener for me a couple years ago. So I'm all about just being happy right now within myself, my family, my life. I hope my job will come along with me and be happy as well. And if I find that we can't make it work, then I'll look around for other opportunities. But in the next year, I don't have too many concrete plans, but to be in a better place than I am today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Couple things, couple takeaways. It sounds like all of you define success on your own terms. So success at home, success at work, and listen, and you listen to yourselves. And when you do, you're going to have a definition that actually fits and that you can modify. And the other thing that I heard from each of you is that somehow, and there were some big curveballs that you all talked about, you caught them and you created value from them. And that's super important too. So I thank you. I would ask everybody who's on the call to unmute yourself and let's give them an applause so that they can hear it because they did a fabulous job. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for all of us, Dimitra.
Yes, well, I just wanted to thank again the panelists. I mean, this truly felt like a conversation with girlfriends. It was really honest and open and just kind of like what's actually behind your resume. Because a lot of times people just see a path on your resume, but there's so much behind it. And it's been so refreshing to hear all of these stories. I encourage all of you on to continue these conversations through our social media. Also, we do have 2 more events for the Leadership Summit series. The next 2 Thursdays, June 3rd, something completely different, which is Lights, Camera, Ladies, learn your camera confidence, because even as we come out of the pandemic, the camera is probably going to be with us for a long time. You know, it's changed how travel is viewed at companies. And so that is with Michelle Moreno, who is a video conference coach and actress. And then on Thursday, June 10th, Leadership Reimagined is a fellow alum, Ruchira Chandri, shares her methodologies from a new book called Coaching: The Secret to Uncommon Leadership. In the summer, we will have a Beyond Brunch series. We are waiting to hear if we're able to do that in person from Chicago booth. Right now, there are no in-person events until the 30th of June. Fingers crossed that we'll be able to see each other in person, but this has proven today that we can have amazing conversations virtually. And with that, after the event, you will receive a survey. Would love any feedback. And also, I should mention, if you would like to host a brunch, we are always looking for volunteers. So thank you so much, Anita, for organizing this amazing panel of women. And again, I can't believe how open and honest this fantastic conversation lady.
You are awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. And thank you for all the comments. There were so many comments. I don't know how many the panelists saw, but they loved you. Let's put it that way. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.